Hello home viewers, welcome to Google Developers Live. It is once again the Google Drive SDK hour, and I am Eric Gilmore, your Google Drive SDK technical writer. I think many of you in our audience are fairly technical people, probably web developers, and perhaps you've even worked with technical writers before. But don't touch that dial, because I'm going to announce, we've already announced, I'm going to talk about a new feature that was announced yesterday. Specifically Google Drive site publishing. Now, maybe you, let's see. The way we'll go about this is I'll pretend I'm a developer, which is part of what I do, is part of my job anyway. But in this case, I'm going to pretend that I'm a mobile app developer, and I've just developed a great new mobile app, and I want to publicize it through a website and perhaps even sell it through the site. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time maintaining the site. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on the hosting. So in my case, I'm very happy that Google Drive Site Publishing exists. Because essentially what Google Drive Site Publishing does is it allows you to put static web app sets into your Google Drive and serve them from there as though it was a web server. And by way of a demo, let's switch over to my screen and pretend that I am searching for website templates, because I'm a mobile app developer and I don't really want to worry too much about the templates. I'll use Google and I will find a nice template that specifically meets my needs, like this one. Responsive mobile app website template. That ought to fit the bill, and it's only $13 to actually own it. Now, let's go ahead and pretend I downloaded that and then expanded the zip in my Google Drive, and then I will have all of these assets. JavaScript to help some cool slider things happen on the website, style sheets to make it pretty, images of course, and the index HTML file. Okay, so this stuff all looks great. Let's have a look at it as served from Drive. This is Google Drive Site Publishing at work. The string right here is the folder ID, and the path to serve files from your drive is googledrive.com/host. And you can see the site is doing all its exciting stuff, but my app, in fact, is not called Fluid App, so I'm going to go in here and do a little bit of editing. This will give you some idea of how quickly Google Site Publishing updates files and serves them for us. Okay, we are in index.html for that Fluid App site, and we're going to change this to the name of my theoretical app, which is not Fluid App, it's Gaseous App. How about that? We need to, here we go.
Now, Eric, if you get a chance, could you increase your font size so the viewers at home can see?
Certainly. Let's see. Is that a little bit better? Okay. One thing I want to do is, since the logo is given as an image, I'm going to have to take some time to improve that, so I'll just remove it for now. But let's go ahead and call Gaseous App out by name. Let's replace it here as well. Let's save the file, which we happen to be editing in Neutron Drive, a really nice free Drive app. Then we'll come back here to Fluid App site, and refresh. Let's see how long it takes for us to get the latest changes. Oh, Gaseous App is coming up, and here it is, the greatest mobile app ever, Gaseous App. And it's being served from my Google Drive, and every time that users come in here and click on one of these buttons, I'll make my $2.99. Wouldn't be a bad way to live if I were actually a mobile app developer. Okay, but let's see. There are some limitations, of course. You can serve JavaScript from Google Drive Site Publishing, but no other server-side scripting currently. You'll also be limited by quotas that are set up to prevent abusive use of the site. So, I mean, for a site like this, if I were selling a mobile app, if I got thousands of requests in the course of a day, that wouldn't cause any problem with quota. But there are, of course, limitations to the number of files you can serve. Definitely limitations in the number of large files like videos that you could serve, so take care with those. All right. Now, this feature, Google Drive Site Publishing, is supported by some features that will, in the API, that will help you to manipulate site files programmatically as well. Let's go ahead and look at a couple of those. As we've documented in a new page in the Google Drive SDK, publishing site content programmatically involves basically two steps. The first thing you need to do is create a public folder with public permissions open to anyone on the internet. And the second thing that you need to do is manipulate web view links, which is a new part of the files resource, a new property in the files resource that gives you the link to files inside a public folder used for Google Site Publishing. Let's take a look here at the page, which gives us example code for Java, Python, PHP, .NET, Ruby, and JavaScript. These are basically the examples that would show you how to create a public folder. Essentially, that would be a folder with permissions of type anyone and role reader. If you've manipulated Drive folders and permissions this way, this will all look very familiar. The WebView link, however, is brand new. And as we said, it's included in the files resource. An example link looks a little bit like this one right here on the page. But let's go ahead and just take a peek really quickly at the reference documentation for the files resource, where we'll see the WebView link along with the web content link, alternate link, the embed link. Of course, there is also a download URL and other types of links that you can use to access Drive files. But to get the paths, the relative paths within Google Drive Site Publishing to manipulate files of this kind, you use the WebView link. As I said in the blog post that we used to announce this feature yesterday, it's important to emphasize the convenience of this. It relieves you somewhat from having to handle lots of specific file IDs, because once you've accessed a relative path inside a public folder used this way, it's a human readable path. For example, there'd be the folder ID, but then, for example, images, as we see here, a subfolder for devices, and then the actual file name. And you can manipulate the paths that way rather than having to, using the WebView link, you can manipulate the paths that way. Okay. So, let me go ahead and address a couple of questions that we anticipate for Google Drive Site Publishing. In fact, a couple of them are questions that we fielded on our blog post yesterday, and they're good questions. The really basic question is simply, well, okay, what if I've dropped a bunch of assets into a public folder, but one of them isn't named index.html? Then what happens? Well, very simply, you get a list of files in any folder that looks a little bit like this one I'm showing right now on my screen. It gives the folder name and the complete list of files. This happens to be a folder containing lots of images from a trip to Alaska I took earlier this year on the Kisaralik River. If you're wondering what that means, it's the name of a river in Alaska where everything has at least 2 Ks in it. And here's the list of files. You could obviously serve those up in a more pleasant way through a web page. You could fetch the metadata and do a lot of the work to show thumbnail images if you wanted. There's a lot you could do. But if you have no index.html file, we will list the files for you. Another good question that people have raised is, okay, this is terrific, I like it, but can I use a GUI? Do you have any feature in the Drive UI to get the web link, to get the web view link, or to manipulate the files that way? Currently, the answer is no. However, any Google Drive web app developer could develop that. You could go ahead and create a GUI to help people do that if you felt like it. That would be something that I might expect to see soon, because people definitely are curious about it. They don't want to do it themselves. They would prefer to have an app or a GUI to help them do it. You could basically have an IDE for simple website publishing, and that would happen here in Drive. People could install the Drive app. Users could use the Drive app. Okay, one more big question that we have received from users, both on Stack Overflow and on the blog and elsewhere, is how about Google Sites? Why wouldn't I just use Google Sites? Why would I use this instead? You know, Google Sites is fine, and it serves a different need, though. Google Sites allows you to go in, and it provides you a number of widgets and facilities to help you edit and create a web page directly in Google Sites. This is more of a case where you might have a bunch of web assets, things that you've edited elsewhere, and you just want to drop them in and have them work. You want to edit them and manipulate them on your own elsewhere. For instance, with Dreamweaver. That's a tool that I've used a lot in my technical writing career, and somebody could write a plugin that would allow you to open HTML files from Drive in Dreamweaver, edit them in Dreamweaver, and then save them back. That would be sort of a fancy version of the Drive web app that I was just discussing a second ago. Of course, that's all coming in the future, and we really look forward to the sorts of sites people will deploy, the sorts of tools that people will use to deal with those sites. I know for one, I'm looking forward to it, and I think the rest of the Drive team is. We think this is a terrific feature. We've seen a whole groundswell of excitement over its announcement yesterday, and we hope that you'll enjoy it too. That's all I have to say today, and if you have questions about this feature or anything you'd like to comment on, please don't hesitate to send questions and comments to our Stack Overflow channel.